In recent days, the music world has found itself unusually quiet, not because the songs have stopped playing, but because concern has replaced celebration. News surrounding Brad Arnold, the founding voice of Three Doors Down, has prompted an outpouring of emotion from fans across generations. While rumors and confusion spread quickly in the digital age, what remains undeniable is the deep connection people feel toward the man behind the music. Brad has long been more than a frontman. He has been a voice of comfort during heartbreak, resilience during struggle, and honesty during uncertainty. As conversations intensified online, one thing became clear. This was not just about headlines, but about gratitude. Gratitude for decades of music that carried people through life's most difficult chapters. In moments like this, the world pauses not to mourn an ending, but to reflect on a legacy still echoing. The man behind the voice. Brad Arnold's journey has always been rooted in authenticity rather than spectacle. Raised in Mississippi, he never set out to be larger than life. Instead, he became relatable, which is far rarer. As the lead singer and co-founder of Three Doors Down, Brad brought a grounded presence to a genre often defined by excess. His voice carried a worn-in sincerity, the kind that made listeners feel understood rather than impressed. Offstage, he was known as humble, thoughtful, and deeply private. Friends and colleagues have long described him as someone who listened more than he spoke and valued family above fame. That balance between public figure and quiet human being shaped how fans connected with him. They didn't just hear songs, they heard someone who sounded like he had lived the same struggles they had and survived them honestly. The song that changed. Everything few songs define an era the way Kryptonite does, and even fewer begin as humbly. Brad wrote the song at just 15 years old, sitting in a classroom, capturing the idea that even the strongest people have weaknesses. When the song eventually reached the world, it didn't explode because of production tricks or marketing. It resonated because it was real. Kryptonite became more than a hit. It became a cultural marker of early 2000s rock, played endlessly on radios, at sporting events, and in bedrooms where teenagers searched for identity. That success launched Three Doors Down into the global spotlight almost overnight. Yet Brad never claimed ownership over how the song was interpreted. He allowed listeners to make it their own, which is why it still endures. Its honesty remains timeless. Building a sound that felt human. Three Doors Down stood apart because their music never felt manufactured. Under Brad's guidance, the band blended post-grunge grit with emotionally direct lyrics that spoke to ordinary life. Songs like Here Without You, Loser, and When I'm Gone didn't rely on metaphorical complexity. They relied on truth. Love lost, distance felt, fear admitted. Brad's songwriting avoided pretending strength was effortless. Instead, it acknowledged vulnerability as part of survival. That approach helped the band reach listeners far beyond rock circles. Their music played at weddings, funerals, long drives, and quiet nights. It was music that stayed with people, not because it was loud, but because it was familiar. Brad didn't write to impress critics. He wrote to be understood. And that intention shaped one of the most recognizable sounds of the era. Fame without illusion. As success grew, so did the pressures that come with it. Touring schedules became relentless. Expectations multiplied. The responsibility of being the voice people leaned on weighed heavily. Brad never romanticized fame, and he never pretended it solved anything. Behind the sold-out shows were long stretches away from home, physical exhaustion, and emotional strain. Unlike artists who chased reinvention, Brad stayed consistent, which required quiet resilience. He understood that showing up mattered more than chasing trends. Fans often saw him as steady, but steadiness takes effort. He carried the unspoken responsibility of representing not just a band, but an emotional soundtrack to people's lives. That burden is invisible, but real. Through it all, Brad maintained perspective, often reminding fans that music was a gift, not a guarantee, and that gratitude mattered more than applause. Losses that changed the road. No career unfolds without pain, and for Brad, loss left permanent marks. The passing of bandmate and close friend Matt Roberts altered the emotional landscape of Three Doors Down forever. They weren't just colleagues. They grew up together, dreamed together, and built something that outlived youth. Later struggles involving other members reinforced how unforgiving life on the road can be. For Brad, continuing forward meant carrying memory alongside momentum. Each performance became layered with reflection. Music transformed from ambition into preservation. He wasn't chasing success anymore, he was honoring it. These losses didn't harden him, they deepened him. They reminded him how fragile time is and how important presence becomes. Through grief, Brad learned that leadership sometimes means standing quietly, carrying the weight so others don't have to. Choosing clarity over escape. At one point, Brad faced his own personal crossroads. The industry offers many escapes but few solutions. When he chose sobriety, it wasn't a dramatic reinvention. It was a quiet commitment to honesty. He spoke openly about faith, accountability, and choosing health over illusion. That transparency resonated deeply with fans who were fighting their own battles. Brad never positioned himself as an example to follow, only as proof that change was possible. On stage, he became calmer, more reflective, more present. The music didn't lose its edge, it gained depth. Sobriety gave him clarity, and clarity gave him peace. For years, it felt like balance had finally been restored. The band continued, the crowds returned, life moved forward, until a new challenge emerged that no amount of discipline could prevent. When silence sparked concern. When public appearances slowed and tour plans changed, fans noticed immediately. In an age where updates are constant, silence invites worry. Speculation spread, fueled by uncertainty rather than fact. Behind that silence was not avoidance, but intention. Brad chose privacy while addressing serious health concerns, focusing on treatment, family, and faith. He did not dramatize the moment, nor did he minimize it. He simply lived it. That restraint reflected who he has always been, measured, grounded, and deeply human. When he eventually acknowledged his health battle, it wasn't framed as defeat, but as reality. Fans responded not with panic, but with support. The pause became a reminder that artists are not immune to vulnerability, and that sometimes strength looks like stepping back rather than pressing forward. Words that reassured millions. When Brad spoke publicly, his message was steady and sincere. He expressed gratitude, faith, and calm acceptance without inviting fear. What mattered most was not the details, but the tone. He didn't ask for sympathy. He thanked people for walking beside him. That response reflected the same honesty that defined his music. Fans, fellow musicians, and public figures flooded social spaces with encouragement and reflection, sharing how his songs shaped their lives. The focus shifted away from rumor and toward appreciation. Brad reminded the world that uncertainty does not erase meaning. His voice, even outside of music, carried reassurance. In choosing transparency without dramatization, he reclaimed control of his narrative. The moment became less about fear of loss and more about recognition of impact. A legacy that is still alive. Brad Arnold's story is not one of endings, but of endurance. His legacy lives not in headlines, but in moments. Songs playing softly during late-night drives, lyrics remembered years later, emotions unlocked unexpectedly. He showed that strength doesn't require perfection, and that honesty creates lasting connection. Whatever chapters lie ahead, his influence is already woven into countless lives. The music remains. The meaning remains. Brad never asked to be immortalized. He asked to be real. That is why his work continues to matter. As fans respect his privacy and hold space for hope, one truth remains unchanged. The voice that helped millions feel less alone still echoes. And that, more than any rumor or speculation, is what truly endures.